With Spotlight caches in Marvel Snap as the primary way to get Series 4 and 5 cards as well as new releases moving forward, it's more important than ever to know not only what new cards are coming up, but also which already existing Series 4 and 5 cards are going to be rerunning inside of these Spotlight caches and when, so you can know when to be saving one of your important resources to get the most usage out of them and get access to the most Series 4 and 5 cards that you want to be playing with. Thanks to data miners in the Marvel Snap community, we likely know what Spotlight cache contents are going to have through the first week of September. So in today's video, I'm going to dive on into that information and showcase the cards as well as the Spotlight variants that will be accompanying each of these weekly Spotlight caches. If you're looking for previews and thoughts on the actual cards themselves, be sure to check the link in the video description down below for my full review of July and August releases. Today, I'm going to be talking about the context of them inside of these caches and then give you a ranking system at the end for my thoughts on which of these groups of caches have the most desirable cards in them and why. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Let's start by running through all of the upcoming cards in the Spotlight caches week to week, as well as the Spotlight variants that will be contained in those as well. Remember, if you already have a card in a given week for a Spotlight cache that's rerunning, it starts off as its Spotlight variant. There are never less than 4 objects inside of your Spotlight cache when you start opening them at the beginning of the week. When you open through 4 of these caches, opening all 4 of the initial things they contain, they reset back up to 4 again. If there's more Spotlight variants you hadn't obtained yet, those will be in the box. Otherwise, there's still just the random Series 4 and 5 card and then other variants you can open as well. You'll also note that I'm denoting which cards are in which series in each of these weekly groupings. While this isn't relevant to opening Spotlight caches in particular, it is relevant to the system as a whole because collector's tokens do still exist, and Series 5 cards are 6,000 tokens, whereas Series 4 cards are only 3,000 tokens. This means if you have access to both of these currencies at any given point, you want to prioritize opening your Spotlight caches on weeks where you're looking for Series 5 cards, while in a perfect world, you utilize your collector's tokens to pick up Series 4 cards that you're interested in for just 3,000 tokens. Rolling out at the 718 rollover, we have Echo, Iron Lad, and Kang, all Series 5, with Kang being a permanent Series 5 card. On 725, we have Legion, High Evolutionary, and Darkhawk, with High Evolutionary being a permanent Series 5 card. On 8-1, we have Mirage, Thanos, and Master Mold, with Thanos being a permanent Series 5 card. On 8-8, we have all repeats, since this will be the week that the August Season Pass rolls out with Dakin in it, meaning we have Galactus, Nimrod, and Spider-Ham as our repeat cards, with Galactus being a permanent Series 5 card. 8-15, we have Lady Deathstrike, MODOK, and Stature. 8-22, we have X-23, Nebula, and Silk, who are all Series 5 cards. 8-29, we have Silver Samurai, Kitty Pryde, and Spider-Man 2099. And then the week of 9-5, which will also be a Season Pass release week again, this time for September, we have all repeats once more with Jeff, Ghost Spider, and Null. Now, I know one of the reasons that a lot of you are opening a video like this one is to try and figure out when you're going to be opening your Spotlight caches, one of your most valuable resources now inside of Marvel Snap. Unfortunately, there's no such thing as an objective rating system for this collection mechanic. One, whether or not any of this artwork has value to you personally is pretty subjective. And 2, everybody's collections in Marvel Snap look very different. Ultimately, which Spotlight caches you are interested in opening is going to depend on which holes your collection has that you're looking to fill in. That being said, I have put together a somewhat objective rating system here, as detailed below me. So I've given each group of cards 1 point for if they contain a new card. I give them 1 point for each Series 5 card that they contain. I give them 1 point for each permanent Series 5 card that they contain. And then the subjective bit of these ratings, I'm giving 1 extra point if a card is what I personally would be considered a format staple. So for example, to explain the rating on the first line here, Echo, Iron Lad, and Kang. Echo is a new card, 1 point. All three of these cards are Series 5 cards. That gets us up to 4 points. Kang is a permanent Series 5 card. That's a 5th point. And then Iron Lad, I think, goes in enough Marvel Snap decks filling a unique role in the metagame that are playable that I would consider that one to be a format staple, rounding out this first group for a total of 6 points in this rating system. Something else to note, if you're looking at these numbers and counting them against the metrics I have down below, is that I am not counting any new card releases as potential format staples. I've been doing this long enough that it's just really hard to know whether or not a card's going to be consistently good or consistently bad until we actually have it in our hands and are playing games with it for a number of hours, which is why I've elected to just give everyone that has a brand new card into it 1 point, since which new cards you're most interested in getting your hands on ASAP is going to differ person to person, but I do think that is a strong draw worth calling out. Most noteworthy, it's only the groups for 8-8 and 9-5, those weeks of new season passes, that explicitly do not have a new card release in them for the Spotlight Cache. If we take these groupings and we sort them based on this rating from highest to lowest, you'll see that our Echo week 7/18 coming up here, as well as the X23 week starting on 8/22, are the only 2 weeks in these groupings that rate a full 6. That's because both of these weeks have a new card releasing directly into Series 5, and then all of the other cards that are rerunning are Series 5 in them as well. It is important to acknowledge, though, that these ratings of 6 kind of exist under the assumption that you're missing all of the cards in a given week, which most people won't be. I think the best way you at home can have some good takeaway from a system like this is looking at my ones that rate the highest and then likely opening your caches inside of the weeks where you are missing all or most of the cards in that given week to add the most playable or high tier cards to your collection while opening your Spotlight caches. Something else these Spotlight Cache data mines can inform is not only when we want to open our caches, but also when we want to be using collector's tokens and on what. For example, based on the data mines, Jeff the Baby Land Shark is not going to be running inside of a Spotlight Cache until that first week of September, meaning if you're someone that's sitting on 6,000 collector's tokens, you've been going back and forth on whether or not you want to pick up Jeff. If you don't want to wait until that first week of September, use your tokens on him now, because you're not going to get a chance to get him out of a Spotlight Cache until that comes around. Not only does it tell us when cards are coming in the not too distant future, it also tells us which cards aren't going to be coming at all. Most notably, current Series 4 and 5 cards Zabu as well as Hitmonkey are cards that aren't in this Spotlight Cache schedule at all, which means if you want to get your hands on them in the immediate short term, spending tokens on them is what you're going to need to do. Now, it is noteworthy that Zabu has been inside of Series 4 for a long time, and we don't know exactly what the downgrade cadence is going to be, so perhaps Zabu is not in these data mines because he's going to get downgraded into Series 3 with the patch in August, but that's definitely not a guarantee. And Zabu's a very playable format staple, so I wouldn't be surprised personally if they keep him in Series 4 a bit longer, while instead choosing to downgrade cards that aren't really desirable inside of Spotlight caches like Snowguard or Howard the Duck or Teenage Warhead. The last thing that these data mine Spotlight caches tell us is that there isn't really a strict guarantee on how long it will take for a card to rerun. While Zabu and Hitmonkey were notable callouts as things that haven't run at all, it's data mined that Null, which is currently in a Spotlight cache as of my recording of this video in the middle of July, is scheduled to rerun again at the beginning of September. We definitely don't have enough information or data points to really know, hey, how frequent are these reruns going to happen versus how often are other cards that are playable going to get skipped over. But I think it is noteworthy that it doesn't look like we're going to have to wait for every Series 4 and 5 card to get a repeat before they run popular and powerful cards like Null for a second time inside of these caches. Overall, this reviewing and ranking groups of cards inside of Spotlight Cache is definitely a new type of Marvel Snap content to me and, well, everyone, since they just came out. So I would love feedback from those of you that made it all the way through to the end of the video. If this type of rating system and the rankings that they provide is useful to you at home, do you think there's another metric I should be counting the cards on that isn't accounted for here? I'd love to hear that. As always, appreciate everybody that watched all the way through the end. Be sure to snap that like button, help this video reach some more people if you enjoyed my thoughts on it. And hopefully we'll see you back again tomorrow for another excellent Marvel Snap video here on YouTube.